It's time for Come and Talk It with your host, Michael Cargill, brought to you by Texas Law Shield. Over the last decade, Michael has championed and supported the rights of law-abiding Texans to own and use firearms. He is the owner of Central Texas Gun Works, a veteran of the United States Army, and has achieved national exposure in such prestigious media outlets such as Forbes Magazine, Fox Business News, CNN Money, AOL, BBC World News, Huffington Post, and the New York Times. Cargill vigorously defends lawful gun ownership in this country without regard to party politics. And now, here's Michael Cargill.
Good day, Austin, Texas, the live music capital of the world. Let's praise the Lord and pass the ammunition. All right, so today we're going to talk about the Texas Constitutional Carry Law. That's right, Texas Constitutional Carry Law. It's going to go into effect on September the 1st. That's right, we're going to have some major changes to our Texas gun laws come September the 1st. Man, we haven't seen changes like this since 1995, and before that, it was like 1869. We're going to do some major changes to our gun laws, something that we've never seen before. They're going to do some things that, man, I never thought that would actually happen in Texas, the Lone Star State. We're going to move up that change to one of the most pro-Second Amendment states. We're almost there. We're not there yet. We're almost there. We're going to tell you why we're not there. We're going to tell you what we need to do to get there. We're also going to tell you some things about the Texas gun law that no one else is telling you. We're going to tell you some little tricky tricks there, some things that happened the last 2 weeks of the normal session where they made some backroom deals. And guess what? We got some good stuff out of that. If you have your license, we'll tell you about that. It's good to have your license to carry handgun come September the 1st for reciprocity. You know, even though the Texas Constitutional Carry Law goes into effect on September the 1st, if you want to travel in other states, it's good to have your license in order to do that, because with a Texas license to carry handgun, you'll be able to travel in other states. Quite a few states out there, as a matter of fact. It's good to have your license to carry handgun if you're going to travel, if you're going to be within 1,000 feet of a school zone. That's right. Under the federal law, not the state, but the federal law, you're actually violating the federal law if you carry a firearm, any weapons at all, within 1,000 feet of a school. With a Texas license to carry handgun, as long as you're a resident of this state, you're exempt from the federal law. It's good to have a license to carry handgun if you're buying a firearm from a gun store, a federal firearms licensed dealer. When you walk into the gun store, like last year, March, April, May, June, July, most of those transactions were delayed 30 days. They were actually violating the law. But guess what? If you had a license to carry handgun, you were able to walk out of the gun store with that firearm. But not if you did not. If you did have a license, you were delayed like 30 days. It's good to have a license to carry handgun if you're 18, 19, and 20 years old and in the military. That's right. If I'm 18, 19, 20-year-olds in the military, I can get a license to carry handgun and carry handgun in Texas. But guess what? If you're not in the military, you got to wait till you're 21 to exercise your Second Amendment rights under the Texas Constitutional Carry Law. Also, school employees. If I'm an employee of a school district and I want to park in the parking lot of the school district, I got to have a license to carry handgun to have my firearm in my vehicle in the parking lot of the school. That is a preschool, elementary school, middle school, or high school. You got to have your license to carry handgun in order to do that. It's good to have your license to carry handgun if you're on private property. You get more rights. More notice needs to be given to you as a license to carry handgun holder. When you walk in on private property, you go into someone's business, they have a sign posted, a 30.06 or 30.07 sign that's posted, says, hey, no handguns are allowed by a license holder. Let's say I didn't see the sign. I didn't notice it. Let's say that the letters were faded. Let's say it was on a glass door and that door opened up. Let's say it was on the back wall when I walked in. I didn't see it. I didn't notice it. As a license holder, they have to give me verbal notice. It's good to have a license to carry handgun. It's good to have a license to carry handgun if you're, guess what, going to a hospital, nursing home, or amusement park. Because here's how it works. Under the Texas Constitutional Carry Law, you will never be able to carry inside of a hospital, nursing home, or amusement park. But as a license holder, they have to give you notice. They have to tell you verbally or post a 30.06 or 07 sign. It's good to have a license carry handgun if you're going to go to the airport. Because like I always tell people, at the Austin Bergstrom Airport, it is the worst airport in the entire country where people forget and take their guns through security. But guess what? There's a state representative that made that mistake. He walked through the airport in Texas carrying his handgun with a license, and he said, you know what? This is messed up. They're charging me with a felony. I'm a license holder. I didn't mean to do this. This is a mistake. So you know what they did? They changed the law. So guess what? As a license holder who has a handgun, you go through that checkpoint, there's a my bad clause. My bad. They will allow you to go lock it up. So you can go lock it up, or give someone a call, have them come pick it up or whatever. You go secure it, and then everything's okay. But without a license under Texas constitutional carry law, that is a felony. So in that situation there, it's good to have a license carry handgun if you're going to go through that checkpoint and make that mistake. But guess what? Even though you make that mistake under the federal law, TSA says, hey, even though the state of Texas is not going to bring criminal charges against you, but TSA, the federal government, we're going to fine you up to $13,000. It's good to have a license carry handgun when you're stopped by police. Because guess what? Under the Texas constitutional carry law, there are quite a few things that police have to take into account when they pull you over if you're carrying a handgun. One, on the Texas constitutional carry law, you got to be 21 or up if you're carrying a handgun. We're going to talk to Edwin Walker, the Texas U.S. Law Shield. He's going to tell us what's the difference between being in your vehicle and being outside the vehicle. Is there a difference? Is there not a difference? We're going to talk to Edwin Walker about that. Also, if you're convicted of assault causes bodily injury, you cannot carry under Texas constitutional carry law. If you're convicted of deadly conduct, you cannot carry under Texas constitutional carry law. If you're convicted of terrorist threats, you cannot carry under Texas constitutional carry law. I need to ask Edwin about those. Aren't those felonies? You can't do it anyway. Or maybe they're not. We'll ask Edwin, and he'll tell us. Also, disorderly conduct, discharging a firearm. You cannot carry under Texas constitutional carry law. Disorderly conduct, displaying a firearm. You cannot carry under Texas constitutional carry law. We're going to talk about that as well. You got to be able to walk to the gun store and purchase a firearm. You cannot be a convicted felon, cannot be a fugitive from justice. You can't even have a speeding ticket in another state, cross over into another state. You are a fugitive from justice. You cannot carry a handgun in Texas constitutional carry law. You can't be an addict. What if you have a medical marijuana card in Colorado? Guess what? Under Texas constitutional carry law, you cannot carry a handgun. You can't be a mental defective. You cannot be an illegal alien. You got to be here legally. You can't be dishonorably discharged from the military. You cannot be convicted of assault, family violence, and you cannot be convicted of protective orders. We come back from the break. We're going to talk about that. We got Edwin Walker with the Texas U.S. Law Shield on the show. He's going to break this down. This is Michael Cargill, and you are listening to Come and Talk It.
Peace, this is Maj Toure. You're listening to Come and Talk It Radio with Michael Cargill.
I'm a U.S. Army veteran with a strong sense of duty and respect for our system of government. After 12 years, I was honorably discharged and decided I would fulfill the American dream of entrepreneurship and open up a gun shop in Austin, Texas. At my shop, I teach people to be law-abiding and how to safely use their firearm. On page 46, we're going to talk about Penal Code Section 46.02. The day that ban went into effect, I went into my local ATF in Austin and turned over my bump stock because I'm a law-abiding citizen. But I wasn't going down without a legal fight. So that's why I reached out to NCLA.
NCLA is representing Michael Cargill because federal agencies do not have the power to rewrite statutes. Bump stocks are not machine guns. If Congress wants to change the law and ban bump stocks, it certainly can do so. But we can't have the executive branch rewriting a statute and putting people in jail for up to 10 years.
It's a problem because, this government agency has said, you know what, something that is legal is now illegal, and we're going to confiscate it from you, and we're not going to compensate you for it, and you're going to become a criminal.
The goal of our case here is to tell the ATF that they can't get away with this kind of administrative lawmaking. This isn't constitutionally permissible, and this goes against everything that our nation was founded on.
The bump stock ban turned innocent law-abiding citizens into criminals overnight, even though they were compliant with the statute. And that's not right.
This case is not about where you stand on bump stocks. It's about the rule of law. It's about whether an agency can rewrite a statute and turn a law-abiding citizen into a criminal. If the ATF can ban bump stocks, any agency can ban anything.
Welcome back to Come and Talk It. And now here's Michael Cargill.
That's right. We're back and we're talking about the Texas constitutional carry law. We're talking about permitless carry. We're going to tell you all the ins and outs on the show today. We're going to break this down for you. I want to tell you the good, I want to tell you the bad, and I also want to tell you the ugly. We're going to break it down. We want Texas to be the most pro-Second Amendment gun state in this country. We want to be number one. We don't want to be number two. We don't want to be number 50. We want to be number one, the most pro-Second Amendment gun state in the nation. Because you know what, Texas, we're kind of like our own nation. But you know what? Let's talk about alcohol for a second. All right, so when it comes to alcohol, man, you know what, Zach, last year, in 2020 for COVID-19, your bars had to shut down in Texas. All the bars, restaurant, most businesses, they shut them down. If a bar wanted to open in 2020, what did the bars have to do in order to open?
Bars that wanted to open had to start serving food.
They had to serve food. That means that they changed their liquor license to a restaurant. So they changed it from a bar to a restaurant. Ladies and gentlemen, do you know that 4,000 bars changed their liquor license to a restaurant? So what does that mean for handguns? And see, that's the problem. Our elected officials, when we do things in this state, we don't know that when you do something on the right, it affects things on the left. So when you did something like that, you said, hey, bars, we're going to allow you to open for COVID by changing your liquor license to a restaurant. That changed their gun status and their knife status. That means that when you change a bar to a restaurant, that means that a license holder can carry a handgun inside the bar. And it also means you can take any size knife inside the bar. That changed their gun status and their knife status. So now, here we are, 2021. Do you know that out of those 4,000 bars in the entire state of Texas, according to TABC, that changed their liquor license from a bar to a restaurant, Zach, do you know that none of them have changed their liquor license back to a bar?
Not one?
Not one. Not one bar changed back to a bar.
Yeah, there's a bunch on 6th Street, on Dirty Six.
So that means right now, today, and here's what I'm going to have you do, people. I haven't had you do this before. We've talked about this for a year now, right, Zach?
Yeah.
We've talked about this ever since last year. We talked about it in May. We talked about it in June. We've been talking about this, in like June of 2020. No one paid attention. So here's what I have you do for me today, folks. I want you to pull up your phone and pull up the App Store in your phone. I want you to do a search for TABC, Texas Alcoholic Beverage Commission, TABC. Pull that up in your phone. In the App Store, when you pull this up, it's TABC Mobile. There are two options. You're going to pull the option up that says Mobile. When you download this app, you'll be able to do a search. You'll be able to do a search, and you'll be able to search for any bar. For example, I want to check out a bar on 6th Street. So let's go to 6th Street, and let's say 6th Street, the party district in Austin. Right, Zach?
Yeah, and for the people who don't want to download the app, you can also go to the TABC website and do the same thing, but the app is just a little bit quicker and easier.
So we're going to go to either the website or the app there, and we're going to do a search for a particular bar. So I like to pick on the library. That's that, you want to text your friends there. You want to say, hey, the library. I haven't checked on them in quite a while. For all I know, hey, they could have changed. Maybe they changed back to something else. So, I'm at the library. I'm studying. That's that code word there. So when you download the app, you go down to the bottom of the app, you do a search, and you pull up the library. You'll pull up 407 Bar LIB space LLC. You do it, pull that up. You look up their liquor license. On that liquor license, and by the way, their license is Mike Bravo space 1048148. I'm looking at it right now. And then it'll tell you red gun sign required. No. That means that currently right now, as a license holder, I can carry my handgun inside that bar on 6th Street. People, do you know that out of 90% of the bars that are located on 6th Street and Rainey Street in Austin, Texas, you can carry your handgun in all those bars with a license right now today?
Wow.
All of them. 90% of the bars on 6th Street and Rainey Street in Austin, Texas, with a license, you can carry your handgun in those bars. Now, Zach, ask me what's going to happen on September the 1st.
What's going to happen on September the 1st, Mike?
Man, you know what, Zach? I'm glad you asked. On September the 1st, that means that permitless carry, constitutional carry is going to go into effect. That means that without a license, anyone that steps foot in the state of Texas, as long as you can qualify on the Texas constitutional carry law, you will be able to carry your handgun in those bars that are now restaurant on 6th Street and Rainey Street without a license in Texas.
There's going to be a lot of guns and a lot of bars.
Man, I cannot wait. I'm telling you now, I can't wait for September the 1st. This is going to be awesome. I'm looking forward to it. This is going to be great. You know what? I'm going to do something special at Central Texas Gun Works on September the 1st. When you walk into the gun store, you buy a gun, you pick up a gun, we're going to give you a beer. I'm going to tell you what that means here in a little later, because some laws are going to change on September 1st as far as license holders and being intoxicated. Some things are going to change. You guys are not paying attention. Are you listening to me out there? This is going to be great. On September 1st, we're going to change some major things in this state. We're going to be able to drink. Some things are going to change. You're going to be able to walk into bars that are now restaurants. Oh, my God, I can't wait. You're going to learn today. Let me bring to the conversation Edwin Walker with Texas U.S. Law School. Edwin, principal attorney with Texas U.S. Law School. Welcome to Come and Talk It, sir. All right, Edwin, can you hear me now? Edwin, come on in there. All right, we're working on that. We're going to get Edwin on here in a little bit. All right, we'll take us a couple seconds there to get him on. All right, Edwin Walker, Texas U.S. Law Show. Come on in there. All right, we're going to take a couple seconds there to get Edwin on. We're having a little technical problems there. But, man, are you excited about this, Zach?
I'm pumped.
You're pumped?
Not as pumped as you are.
Man, I'm so excited.
You are excited.
Dude, you don't even know. You know what? They've had so many different shootings downtown Austin, and I told them, I said, downtown, you guys got to do something different. You got to do something different because, every other weekend, or at least, every third weekend, there's like some kind of shooting that happens outside, one of those bars. And it always happens about 2 o'clock in the morning. So you mean to tell me at 2 o'clock in the morning, you got people that are downtown Austin in and out of bars. They're in and out of bars because there's nowhere in the world you go downtown Austin and you don't walk into a bar. Mm-hmm. And they're carrying guns right now, illegally.
Yeah, those two people that got in the gunfight.
14, 17, and and 18 or whatever it was, or 19.
Yeah, when they were shooting at each other, not one bullet hit its intended target.
No,
they all hit bystanders.
Right. So we had a mass shooting in Austin. Mass shooting. 14 innocent people were shot. They couldn't even shoot each other.
So you better be a good shot if you're going to be shooting back at somebody
in a crowd of
situation
people
like that. On 36th Street, where
Man,
it's like a sea of people.
I'm
just
excited.
Walking down the street.
I can't wait. You know, I had a conversation with the Austin police chief. I grabbed him at a parade. I said, hey, chief, you know, Austin police chief, hey, do you know what's going to happen on September the 1st? I explained to him this. I talked about, you know, the COVID-19. I talked about them changing their liquor license. I talked about, you know, what it is right now, what's going to happen on September 1st. And he was like, oh, no. What do you mean, oh, no? Dude, you need to get ready for this. This is going to be awesome. Man, I talked to the Travis County DA. He knew. None of the police officers in Austin knew about this. They don't know. But guess what? The DA, the Travis County DA, he knew exactly what was going to happen. He said, yeah, I'm aware. He said, Mike, what do I do? I'm like, dude, you're an elected official. Figure it out. I don't need to tell you what you need to do. I don't get paid to do your job. You figure it out. You're an elected official. That's not my job to figure it out for you. All right, so let me try to bring in Edwin Walker one more time, Texas U.S. Law School. All right. And so, man, this is going to be exciting to me. This is exciting. I'm excited.
You got your guns ready? You got them polished and cleaned and
Dude,
just ready to go?
Let me tell you. You know what? I got a new holster, you know, a brand new custom holster. I'm not going to tell you where I keep my gun at all. They're going to have to figure it out. I'm going to have one on my left, one on my right. You know, I got a new holster for my 45 and a new holster for my 38 Special. And boy, it's on. It is on. I cannot wait for September the 1st. Constitutional carry.
And you got to go to the range and practice too.
Yeah. And then
everybody that's going to carry, you better practice.
You better. But let me tell you about the alcohol, though. Do you know on September the 1st, when Texas constitutional carry law goes into effect, they're going to flip the script. You know what they're going to do? If you're a license holder and you're carrying a handgun, they're going to raise that legal limit of intoxication to 0.08. 0.08.
Because it was no tolerance.
That's right. As of right now, if you're a license holder, you're carrying a handgun, 0's the limit. You cannot be intoxicated.
And now for the non-license holders after September 1st, they will be the ones with the 0 tolerance.
That's right. On the Texas constitutional carry law, you cannot be intoxicated at all come September the 1st.
You can't even have any blood alcohol content.
0. 0's the limit. That's right. And that's everything. When they say everything, Zach, they're saying everything. You know what they say? They say, everything, Zach.
Everything.
Everything. That's what we're talking about. Everything.
All right. And now Matthew online is asking, what if a bar has a blue sign online, but they post a red sign?
Then I tell you what. Hey, Matthew, what you do is you get Texas and U.S. Law Shield. You do a screenshot on your phone, what the liquor license says, and then you do a good job of concealing your handgun. This is Michael Cargill, and you are listening to Come and Talk It.
Hey, this is AWR Hawkins, Breitbart News, and you're listening to Come and Talk It with Michael Cargill.
Whether it's a typical traffic stop or you're just involved in a use of force incident, encounters with law enforcement can be scary and stressful. In the heat of the moment, you may inadvertently say something you don't mean or make an inconsistent statement. These are red flags for officers, and if they think you're lying or your story doesn't add up, they might arrest you and let the criminal justice system decide your fate. Police officers are trained to get information from you without making the interaction seem like a formal interrogation. But remember, from the moment an officer arrives on scene, everything you say and everything you do will be scrutinized in court. The prosecuting attorney will attempt to use anything and everything against you. So what do you say? You say, I invoke my right to remain silent, and then let your attorney interact with law enforcement on your behalf. One important note though, do not throw common sense out the window. For example, if the intruder's hiding somewhere in your house when the police arrive, or if you saw the perpetrator pitch his weapon into your backyard, quickly tell the police and then stop talking. You might ask, what about my rights? What if the police never read me my Miranda rights? Miranda rights is the common name for a collection of rights contained in the Miranda warnings, given to suspects when they're placed under arrest. The warning comes from a 1966 Supreme Court case, Miranda v. Arizona. In that case, the court held that statements from a custodial interrogation would not be admissible unless proper procedural safeguards were in place to protect the defendant's Fifth Amendment rights. We've all seen these warnings on TV and movies. You have the right to remain silent. You have the right to have an attorney. Anything you say can and will be used against you in a court of law, and so on. So do police have to read you your rights? No. It's important to note that officers are not required to read you these rights unless you're in custody and subjected to interrogation. If the police show up to a crime scene and start asking you general questions and you voluntarily tell them everything that happened, those statements can be used against you regardless of the Miranda.
Welcome back to Come and Talk It. And now here's Michael Cargill.
All right, I got some questions online. They're asking me about the red 51% sign. Well, you know what? I'm not an attorney. I cannot give you legal advice. But if I go to a business and I pull up the app and the app says that I can carry my handgun inside that business with a license, even on September 1st without a license, I'm going to look for a 30.05 sign. Come September 1st, they're going to create a new sign. I'm going to look for a 30.06 sign, a 30.07 sign. If I don't see the sign, I don't notice it as a license holder, they have to give me verbal notice, a little more notice.
What is this 30.05 sign?
We're going to say that for Edwin Walker. Let's bring into the conversation Edwin Walker, principal attorney with Texas U.S. Law Shield. Edwin, welcome to Come and Talk It, sir.
Oh, it's great to be here. Sorry, we had some technical issues about getting connected.
No worries at all, sir. Man, I enjoy having you on the show, Edwin Walker. Let me tell you, Edwin is like the best attorney in Texas when it comes to these gun laws. Let me tell you, no one else, the best, hands down. And when I'm in trouble and I'm scared and I'm shaking, I call Edwin Walker. I'm telling you right now, this is the person I talk to.
Well, thanks. Hopefully I can live up to that illustrious introduction that you've given.
So, Edwin, tell us about this Texas constitutional carry law.
Well, one thing that I thought, because you did a great job of outlining the benefits of license holders over non-license holders, or people who just want to depend upon the constitutional carry, in which I don't know if maybe didn't hear you, or maybe you didn't mention it, but I figured it would be your absolute favorite provision, and that is the provision that license holders now cannot be in any way excluded from public meetings, from open meetings of governmental entities.
Yes, sir. That is the last and the final and the best one of them all, the icing on the cake.
I figured you'd be September 1st. You're at the next Austin City Council meeting, sitting right in the front row with a gun on each hip.
Come September the 1st, I'm wearing I'm going to get a brand new red shirt with black pants, some brand new boots. I'm going to carry two guns, one on the left, one on the right, and I'm going to be sitting in the front row of the Austin City Council meeting, carrying my handgun in the open with smiles from left to right.
It was a lapse in judgment.
Well, and the thing about it is like, that is really, now I know that unlike, yourself, there's many people that say, well, I'm not interested in carrying in a governmental meeting, but it really, that provision sort of really is the most stark difference between having a license and not having a license, because the license holder, as we have just said, cannot be kicked out in any way, shape, or form. But the unlicensed individual, the second they step in without any no notice is necessary. The second they step in, they be charged with a felony.
Felony.
So a license holder may not be removed?
Correct.
What if they're being rowdy?
Well, that's a different crime.
Right.
So if they're being disruptive, they can be removed for being disruptive. But just simply sitting there minding your own business, watching the city council go through their, seeing them sweat in their seats, not taking their eyes off Mike Cargill.
I'm just going to smile.
Yes, of course.
This big
They
brown
can't do
black
it.
face smiling from left ear to right ear. Let me tell you.
And the thing, and the thing about it is that I've got a good friend of mine who happens to be a city attorney of a medium-sized city here in Houston, and he called me. And of course, in our line of work, whenever we're talking to most people and we tell them something that they can't understand or they simply don't believe, invariably their next words are, "You're telling me," and that's kind of a running theme at our office is who's going to say, when you tell them something, "You're telling me." And of course, him being a lawyer, he's a little more sophisticated than "you're telling me." But basically, that's exactly what he said to me. He's like, "Now, is it true? Am I reading this correctly?" Because they've used the 30-06, 307 signs, and he said, "Well, we can't even stop them from open carrying." I go, "Nope, can't do a thing." Said, "So all the signs in the world aren't going to mean a thing come September 1st. I said, "Well, you can take solace in the fact that you can round up all the unlicensed carriers you want, but anybody who comes in there with a license, you just have to let them sit there."
But you know what, Edwin? I'm going to make a bet with you. I bet, you know what? It's questionable. Is constitutional carry in effect right now, or does it really go into effect September the 1st? Because you know what? I got a good attorney. A real good attorney.
It goes into effect September 1st.
I got a real good attorney.
No way.
And
with anybody can get around that.
With my good attorney, if I get charged with unlawfully carrying a weapon right now, if we can push this case to court and I get a conviction between now and September the 1st, something's going to happen.
Well, you can get it expunged. And so that is we've actually tried that in a couple of cases where somebody will be charged with a couple of different crimes, and we go to the DA and say, "Look, we'll just take the conviction on the UCW," knowing that. And some district attorneys, they don't know. And so they'll be like, "Yeah, okay." But yes, you can get the unlawful carry conviction expunged.
So explain that. So with that, what's going to happen on September 1st with people that have convictions right now? I jokingly make that, but constitutional carry will not go into effect until September 1st. What's going to happen on September 1st if you do have a conviction of unlawfully carrying a weapon?
Well, after that, it's not automatic. You still have your responsibilities for asking for the expunction. But the expunction statute, I tell you what, just as kind of a side note, the expunction statute is one of the most complicated and difficult to understand and comply with statutes in Texas law. It's Chapter 55 of the Code of Criminal Procedure. And basically, a provision was added that if you have an unlawful carry conviction, that is now a grounds to get expunged, which really is kind of groundbreaking because expunctions are not handed out for convictions. Right now, expunctions only apply to people who were arrested and maybe they were charged, but certainly being convicted or being placed on deferred adjudication for any crime. You are not eligible for an expunction now. And the only change will be for the unlawful carry. And that really is a groundbreaking statute because, that kind of paves the way that if they start repealing a lot of these other laws, like the marijuana possession laws and things like that, has the precedence been set in the legislature that they're going to include similar provisions for people who are convicted of crimes that the state no longer views as crimes. But I guess that's a whole nother topic for another show.
And someone has a question, what about long gun restrictions? Because on starting September the 1st, some things are going to change a little bit about long guns. We haven't done that since 1869.
Yeah, well, it is kind of interesting. And there'll be those people out there that'll want to point this out as, I guess, as a negative, or they'll say, well, constitutional carry is not that great because now I can't carry my rifle. I can't carry my rifle to the polling place, or I can't carry my rifle to, where professional sporting events or to a bar. Which the thing about it is that, since Texas, the evolution of the history of Texas law is very interesting because whenever the original Texas Unlawful Carry Act was passed in 1871, basically what they did was that their objective was not necessarily geared to guns. Obviously, that's the way we think about it. But it prohibited all weapons that could be concealed. And so it was a concealed weapons law. You couldn't carry, that's where our language that was repealed a couple of sessions ago, dirks, daggers, stilettos, poignards, that's where all that language came from. So all of these concealable knives, brass knuckles, pistols, they were all put in there. And since a long gun is very, very difficult to conceal, it was never really even considered regulated. And so then when the legislature got around to saying, okay, these are the prohibited places for carrying, these are the places that we traditionally found in 4603. So the places where nobody could carry a handgun, but then suddenly license holders get the ability to carry a handgun, those were then put in 46035. And so now, since 46035 has been eliminated, all of those prohibited places that were in 46035 have now been moved to 4603, which now means that places like hospitals, nursing homes, amusement parks, places that were previously exclusively left under 46035 are now included in the blanket coverage of you cannot carry a firearm, not specifically a handgun, but all firearms, long guns and shotguns. You cannot carry a firearm, a location-restricted knife, or a club in this list of locations, which is basically doubled in size because of the incorporation of the prohibited places in 46035.
Because before that, you could actually do it. No one actually did it, but you could do it. And now you absolutely cannot. It's a felony.
Yeah, in fact, that's what whenever the open carry demonstrators were doing their thing 6, 7, 8 years ago, they were sort of demonstrating, if you will, by going into places that served alcohol and bars. They would take their long guns in there because the alcohol prohibition only applied to handguns. And so their point being was that, look, I can carry my rifle in here. Why can't I carry a handgun? And the thing about it is that there was a little conflict between the alcoholic beverage code and the penal code. So what happened whenever we would try to explain this to people is that the penal code will not penalize you for carrying your rifle into a restaurant that serves alcohol. However, the restaurateur, the permit holder, risked losing his permit because the alcoholic beverage code did use the word firearm instead of just handgun. And so that created a conflict, which a lot of people didn't bother to understand. But now, firearms are included in the prohibition, moving the 51% places to 4603.
Okay, when we come back from the break, Edwin, I want to ask you about vehicles. I want to ask you what's the difference between someone 18 years old and having a handgun in the vehicle versus being outside the vehicle under the Texas constitutional carry law. I want to ask you about gang members. What's the difference between a gang member now? Is there something going to change on September 1st? Can I be a gang member and have a handgun in the vehicle on September the 1st? Can I be a gang member and have a handgun outside the vehicle under Texas constitutional carry law? We're going to break that down for you because some things are going to change. And Edwin, what exactly is a gang member? Is this going to be in the eyes of the holder of the police officer? Oh, man, this is getting confusing. This is Michael Cargill, and you are listening to Come and Talk It.
Hey, this is AWR Hawkins, Breitbart News, and you're listening to Come and Talk It with Michael Cargill.
Hello, my name is Edwin Walker. I'm an independent program attorney with Texas Law Shield. I want to talk to you today about an issue that we see on a daily basis. In fact, you yourself will encounter it on a daily basis, and that is the subject of road rage. I am sure that you have all seen road rage. You may have actually been involved in a road rage incident. Now, if you're a responsible gun owner, I'm going to give you a few words of advice on how to react when you find yourself in one of these unfortunate road rage incidents. While on the roadways, we all observe something that makes us upset. Whether it's poor driving, unsafe driving, or just simply somebody being very discourteous. By all means, you should restrain yourself from engaging that person and telling them how bad their actions were, because this can be perceived as an act of road rage. If you're a lawful gun owner, you have a firearm in your vehicle, you do not want to be viewed as the aggressor in a road rage situation. Now, with regard to a situation where an individual has chosen to rage against you, and you are the actual victim of the road rage, if you and the other individuals are still in their automobiles, do not use your firearm to respond to any of the rager's activities. This is because law enforcement views the fact that you're both still safely in your metal boxes as removing any threat of immediacy that you may be harmed. So please, if you have a gun, somebody is raging against you, forget you have a gun. Don't display it, don't brandish it, don't show it, don't point it, and for God's sake, don't fire it. This could result in a lot of trouble for you. Now let's look at a situation where a road rage incident has escalated. It has escalated to the point where one of the participants has actually gotten out of their vehicle. We recommend that you stay in your vehicle at all times. Do not exit your vehicle, because the person who exits their vehicle is going to be looked at as the aggressor. If the other individual has exited their vehicle and they are not in contact with your vehicle and they do not have a weapon, then do not feel that you can display your weapon in an act of self-defense. People are allowed to just simply stand there and scream at you, scream whatever they want. Until they make a demonstrative effort to try to harm you, there is no immediate threat that would justify displaying or shooting or brandishing your firearm. Now, in the event that the person shows their own weapon, in particular a firearm, the existence of their weapon would give you reasonable belief that there was an immediate threat of harm that would just...
Welcome back to Come and Talk It.
All right, so we're back and we're talking with Edwin Walker, Texas U.S. Law Shield, the principal attorney. This is my go-to attorney, the one that I go to when I have issues and problems. I'm like, hey, I need some help. I go to Edwin Walker, Texas U.S. Law Shield attorney, the best gun attorneys in the entire state of Texas, the best gun attorneys in the United States. I think so. So let me ask Edwin. Edwin, let me tell you. Okay, let me ask this question. So I'm 18 years old. I'm 18, and I have a handgun in my vehicle. At 18, on the Texas constitutional carry law, am I good? Am I okay there with a handgun in my vehicle?
Well, the constitutional carry law doesn't apply to you as an 18-year-old, but what you still retain was not taken out of the law whenever they inserted all the constitutional carry provisions, is that an 18-year-old still has the ability to possess and carry, a firearm, including a handgun, on property that they own or that they are in control of, or inside or en route to a motor vehicle or watercraft, as long as that handgun is concealed. So it still does have to be concealed, because one of the provisions that they did add was that a lot of people who are very familiar with the carrying in your automobile, they know that you have to be lawful to possess the firearm. It has to be concealed, or if you're a license holder, it can be in a belt or shoulder holster. You can't be committing a crime other than a Class C regulation of traffic, or you can't be a member of a criminal street gang. Now, the alterations that they did to that was they moved the criminal street gang provision to the people who are unlawful to carry statute, which is 4604. So that's been taken out of 4602. They added the fact that you have to be 21 if your handgun is in plain view. And otherwise, it's pretty much the same. And so an individual who is 18, they can have it in their home, or if they're renting an apartment, or if they own a business or they're in control of the business, they're covered. They're okay to take that handgun to their motor vehicle. But then at that point, in the event that at this point they differ from the constitutional carrier. The constitutional carrier, the person who's 21, will be able to allow their handgun to be in plain view as long as it's in a holster, no longer just a belt or shoulder holster, so any holster you want. As long as it's in a holster, the 21-year-old can allow their gun to be seen. The 18, 19, 20-year-old still must conceal that handgun. So put it in the seat next to you, put a blanket over it, a jacket, put it in your console, put it in your glove compartment, put it in a box, something like that. So that's where the 18-year-old differs. And of course, always remember that the 18-year-old is limited to those areas and carrying a handgun. They cannot carry it with them anywhere else. But in a motor vehicle, they're okay as long as it's concealed.
Okay, so if I want to have it in the open in the vehicle, I have to be 21 years of age under the Texas constitutional carry law.
And in a holster.
And in a holster. Okay. All right.
Yes. Which is a lot of whenever they first came up with the open carry stuff with the holster requirement, I can't tell you how often, and I'm sure you experienced this the same in your classes and at your store, people were obsessed with the belt or shoulder requirement and wondering why they couldn't have it in a holster that bolted to their car, why they couldn't have it in a holster that strapped up under their steering column. Everybody was looking for a way around or trying to walk the line with regard to the holster requirement. And it was one of the really, really good things that came out of constitutional carry. Of course, there was another bill that stood on its own that would have eliminated the belt or shoulder holster, the belt or shoulder requirement for the holster. And so, yeah, if you're 18, 19, or 20, that's one fundamental thing that you're going to remember is that in situations where you do get to carry a handgun, don't carry it in the open, in your car.
And another question for you. So someone just sent me this. They said, hey, Mike, did you know that under the Second Amendment rights, well, I think he's talking about under one of the bills they passed this last session, persons between 18 and 21 can get a handgun if they are protected under a protective order. Department of Public Safety, Chapter 411.1732, there will be a special designation on their CHL, I believe he means the LTC license carry handgun, noting that they have the right to carry per a protective order, provided the applicant passes muster on other fronts. This applies only to applications for handguns processed after September the 1st. Can you explain that a little bit?
Yeah, that's a new provision and actually there's two provisions. There's one about that basically do the same thing. One of them deals with protective orders for families. One deals with magistrate orders and other types of orders that protect against domestic violence. So basically what the legislature did was they said, look, there's a lot of people who need to carry a handgun for their own protection. There's actually been a judicial finding that they are in imminent danger of having violence perpetrated against them, usually by somebody in their family. And so those folks were really put into a bind in that they were statutorily ineligible to get an LTC. And now under the constitutional carry, they're ineligible to constitutional carry because they're between the ages of 18 and 20. And so the legislature made an accommodation that just like as you mentioned in the introduction of your show, members of the military who are 18, 19, 20 can apply for and receive an LTC. Now people who are the protected party or the victim under any type of protective order, a magistrate's emergency order, a proper protective order issued under the Code of Criminal Procedure, a protective order issued under the Family Code, they now have the ability to get an LTC, even though they would otherwise be ineligible simply because of their age. Now, obviously, they still have to meet the other eligibility requirements. So if you have a 19-year-old who's a protected party, but they're a convicted felon or they have a DWI conviction 3 years ago, they're still going to be ineligible. So you otherwise have to be eligible, but if you're a protected party, the age requirement no longer applies to you.
Okay. Now, let's go back. Let's talk about gang members. What about gang members, Edwin? So if I'm a gang member, can I have a handgun in my vehicle after September the 1st? Because before September the 1st, you cannot be a member of a street gang and have a handgun in your vehicle. But after September the 1st, can I be a member of a street gang and have a handgun in my vehicle?
Yes, well, no, you can't be a member of a criminal street gang and have a handgun. And members of criminal street gang, there were actually a couple of bills that were proposed that would have clarified that not only do you have to be that basically getting on the list, it is. And I don't want to look like I'm the defender of criminal street gangs. I'm not the MS-13 lawyer. Actually, the types of criminal street gang people that we have seen that are most apt to get charged with this are not Crips and Bloods, not MS-13, not Latin Kings, but biker gangs, because they're the ones that are out on the road. They're the ones that are being stopped on traffic. They're the ones that have guns in their vehicles. And so, no, if you are a member of a criminal street gang, you still are prohibited. Now you're prohibited under 4604. However, one of the major exceptions to this, and which it's been an exception the entire time, so this is not new, but one of the exceptions to this is that if the member of a criminal street gang is an LTC holder, then it doesn't apply. Now, believe it or not, as recently as last month or the month before last, I had a case in Harris County involving a motorcycle enthusiast, we shall call him, who was stopped and who was arrested because he was carrying a handgun. He immediately protested to the police officer, I have an LTC. I told you, I handed you my LTC when you stopped me. Yes, I have a handgun on me. And not only did the police officer, who was a member of the biggest police department in Harris County, I think we can figure out which one that is, who should know better, and especially the Harris County DA, who took the case on intake, should have known better. And certainly the chief of the misdemeanor court that I had to go argue against absolutely should have known better, that the prohibition just simply doesn't apply to members of a criminal street gang who have LTCs. And in fact, this prosecutor actually went to court and argued, I don't know how much she believed in her own argument, but she actually argued that the legislature did not intend to make criminal street gang members who had LTCs accepted to the law in 4602, which of course the judge did not believe, fortunately, so he didn't make us go to trial. The judge found no probable cause throughout the case. I can't believe she actually made this argument as type of legitimate, but the legislature clarified that now, this year, they have eliminated that possible argument because they actually made an intended decision to move the criminal street gang prohibition from 4602 to 4604, but then they specifically wrote another exception into 4615, specifically noting that it is clearly the legislative intent that members of criminal street gangs who have LTCs are not violating the law.
Wow. So they put it in non-applicability is what you're saying.
Yes.
Wow. All right. So as a member of criminal street gang, I cannot have a handgun in my vehicle, and I cannot carry on the Texas constitutional carry law, but I can get an LTC and carry a handgun.
Well, yeah, no, you can carry under the constitutional carry law too as a criminal street gang member. You just can't carry in your car. That's one of the interesting things.
Okay, hold on, Edwin.
The prohibition.
I'm gonna have you explain that when we come back, and then I'll cut you loose there. We're talking with Edwin Walker, principal attorney at Texas U.S. Law Shield. This is Michael Cargill, and you are listening to Come and Talk It.
This is Brittany Glaze, and I get my global gun news from Michael Cargill on Come and Talk It. I'm a U.S. Army veteran with a strong sense of duty and respect for our system of government.
After 12 years, I was honorably discharged and decided I would fulfill the American dream of entrepreneurship and open up a gun shop in Austin, Texas. At my shop, I teach people to be law-abiding and how to safely use their firearm. On page 46, we're going to talk about Penal Code Section 46.02. The day that ban went into effect, I went into my local ATF in Austin and turned over my bump stock because I'm a law-abiding citizen. But I wasn't going down without a legal fight. So that's why I reached out to NCLA.
NCLA is representing Michael Cargill because federal agencies do not have the power to rewrite statutes. Bump stocks are not machine guns. If Congress wants to change the law and ban bump stocks, it certainly can do so. But we can't have the executive branch rewriting a statute and putting people in jail for up to 10 years.
It's a problem because, this government agency has said, you know what, something that is legal is now illegal, and we're going to confiscate it from you, and we're not going to compensate you for it, and you're going to become a criminal.
The goal of our case here is to tell the ATF that they can't get away with this kind of administrative lawmaking. This isn't constitutionally permissible, and this goes against everything that our nation was founded on.
The bump stock ban turned innocent law-abiding citizens into criminals overnight, even though they were compliant with the statute. And that's not right.
This case is not about where you stand on bump stocks. It's about the rule of law. It's about whether an agency can rewrite a statute and turn a law-abiding citizen into a criminal. If the ATF can ban bump stocks, any agency can ban anything.
Welcome back to Come and Talk It. And now here's Michael Cargill.
All right, so I need to get Edwin to clarify something for me because I've been saying this wrong, So Edwin, you're saying that as a street gang member under Texas constitutional carry law, you can carry handguns starting September 1st, but you cannot have a handgun in your vehicle.
Correct. As odd as it may sound, and this is exactly what I was alluding to earlier. You should have said, "You're telling me."
So you're telling me, Edwin Walker.
You're telling me, and that's one of the things is that the development of the constitutional carry bill is a fascinating case study in legislation and how it starts off doing one thing and it transforms and maybe it creates things that surprises people. Maybe it was intended, maybe it was accidental, but it really was fascinating. So when they decided to pull out the criminal street gang prohibition, now keep in mind, the only place it existed was in that being able to carry a handgun in your car without a license. Provision. It was created in 2005 when it was originally created as a definition, if you will, of traveling. And they moved it from 4615 to 4602. And they kept this criminal street gang. For some reason, the legislature became fascinated about criminal street gangs and automobiles. And I'm assuming that's just because they didn't mind, the criminal street gang members were already prohibited from carrying handguns around in, just through the Walmart parking lot. And they were concerned about drive-bys, and so they said, okay, motor vehicles, can't have it in a motor vehicle. So when they take that out of 4602 and they replace it with 46.04A-1. And so this is a brand new provision of people who are not allowed to have handgun or not allowed to have firearms. It's in there with felons. It's in there with people committed, who've committed misdemeanor crimes of domestic violence. It's in there with, you can't sell you can't give one to an intoxicated person. It's all there in 4604. They added A-1, which I'll go ahead and read it verbatim so we all are on the same page. A-1, new A-1 that will go into effect September 1st says, a person who is a member of a criminal street gang as defined by section 71.01 commits an offense if the person intentionally, knowingly, or recklessly carries on or about his or her person a handgun in a motor vehicle or watercraft. And so that's the provision. It's not criminalized under the new 4602. The provisions of 4602, which reference 4604, reference 4604A, B, and C, which is the felony, the misdemeanor crime of domestic violence, the people under protective orders, they can't carry. But this new provision, A-1, is only, it's brand new, it's there, but then it is specifically mentioned in the new 46.15B as included in the list of inapplicabilities, which includes people who have license. And so, yes, to think about this logically, which, like I said, you may say, oh my God, I can't believe they did that. There can be, and I've sort of suggested this, maybe facetiously, maybe they don't, but the person in the military, or traditionally the person in the military who has had charge of weapons, is the quartermaster, right? And so, I have kind of joked that each criminal street gang should have a quartermaster who is a license to carry holder. The members of the criminal street gang, when they're traveling, they can turn all their weapons over to this quartermaster, who then can lawfully carry them in his motor vehicle, and then whenever they get to their destination, redistribute the handguns to the people who don't have LTCs, and now they can lawfully carry as long as they're not in a motor vehicle or watercraft.
That's a good point. That's a way to get around it, let me tell you. Wow.
So, yeah, I'm sure the police would really freak out if they stopped one of these motorcycle enthusiasts and looked in his saddlebags and found 24 handguns that he was carrying for other members.
I'm an LTC holder. I can legally be in possession of all these firearms.
Exactly.
Wow. Man, Edwin, thank you, sir. I know I held you over a little longer. I know you got to go. You got an appointment there. But I really appreciate you. And I'm going to have to get you back on because there's so many questions I have about this stuff. And I really appreciate you breaking it down. And like I said, when I talk to you, I always learn something because I had that wrong, about the criminal street gang. And I'm glad I talked to you about it because you corrected me, and I really appreciate that.
Sure. Well, Mike, it's always a pleasure being on here, and look forward to being here again.
Absolutely, sir. Thank you very much. That is Edwin Walker. He's the principal attorney with Texas U.S. Law Shield. They are the best legal program. If you're going to go out here, you're going to carry your gun, I strongly urge you to get a legal plan. Get Texas U.S. Law Shield. We've had shootings that have happened all around the country, like last year, 2020, you had a shooting that we talked about last weekend. We talked about this last weekend that happened in Austin, where you had a young man, United States Army sergeant, who was driving for a rideshare company. He had a handgun in his vehicle, license holder. He's driving part-time for Uber. He drops off a passenger on the 6th Street, goes to Congress, makes a right turn. He's faced with protesters, and boom, he had to defend himself. Well, guess what? That sergeant in the United States Army did not have a legal plan. He now has to have a GoFundMe page to pay for his legal expenses. Even though we know on September the 1st, when constitutional carry goes into effect, you can carry a handgun. Do you have a legal plan? What are you going to do if you have to use this firearm? The Travis County DA, they're going to bring charges against you. He does not like guns. Jose Garza does not like the Second Amendment. He is not pro-Second Amendment. You pull your gun out, you use it in Travis County in Austin, Texas, or Harris County in Houston, Texas, Olga, she's going to bring charges against you. So I strongly urge you to get a legal plan. Get Texas and U.S. Law Shield to defend yourself. Because once you protect yourself, who's going to defend you in court? I cannot stress that enough. I cannot tell you how many phone calls we get throughout the week of people that have had to use their gun for self-defense or use something, anything, their fists, their hands, some keys, a stick, a bat, a knife to defend themselves, and now they're in trouble because maybe they said the wrong thing. I don't know. You got to exercise your right to remain silent. You have a right to remain silent. Anything you say can and will be used against you in a court of law. I cannot stress that enough. Get a legal plan and shut your mouth. Your mouth is your worst enemy. Shut it. Close it. You have a right to remain silent. Anything you say can and will be used against you in a court of law. I had a friend of mine who is a state trooper gave me a call this week, and he was asking me about, some things, about the law and stuff like that. And then he was making a joke. He's asked me, hey, you just posted something on social media, Mike. What's this thing you posted on social media about? I said, excuse me, I don't talk to cops. You a police officer. I don't talk to you. I don't answer questions to police officers. I have a right to remain silent. That's right. Exercise your right to remain silent. Shut up. Even though he's my friend, he's a cop. I don't talk to him. You can talk to my attorney. That's what my attorney is for. You're going to learn today. If you don't learn nothing else, you're going to learn that. So that's right. So I'm grateful with Texas U.S. Law Shield. They defended my family, my parents. They defended some college students, back in the day. They defended my employees when it comes to the Second Amendment. So I cannot stress this enough, people. You're going to go out there. You're going to carry a gun on September 1st. You're carrying a gun now. You can have one at home. You can have one in your vehicle. You have to defend yourself. You have to pull that gun out and use it. You're going to need a legal program. Texas and U.S. Law Shield will defend you. They are undefeated, have not lost a case. Get Texas and U.S. Law Shield. I cannot stress that. I'm begging you. I beg you to do this. Don't call me. I'm not an attorney. I cannot give you legal advice. I'll listen to what you have to say, and I'm going to hang up on you because I'm not an attorney. I cannot tell you anything. I cannot give you advice. I cannot stress that enough. And I cannot tell you how often this happens to us. The phone calls I get throughout the week where people ask me these questions. All right, so, man, Zach, what do you think about that? That's a lot of good information there Edwin gave us.
Yeah, that's a lot. I always like when Edwin comes on.
A lot of good stuff, DJ. And you got a new tool that I don't know, you want to talk about it now? Okay, maybe not. All right, so.
Can't talk about that.
Can't talk about that. Never mind. We won't talk about that. Moving on. All right, so, man, we come back from the break. We're going to talk about some current events. We want to talk about some shootings that have happened. I want to talk about some things that are in the news. Man, there's a lot going on in Cuba. You hear about that? Cuba, they're asking for it. There's a revolution in Cuba. They're saying, hey, we need something to change here in Cuba. And people are saying, they're calling it a revolution. They're calling it a civil war. And I say this is not a civil war in Cuba. A civil war is when both sides have guns. In this case, you have one side have guns, and the other side have sticks. That's not a civil war. That is a massacre, people. There's a massacre that's happening in Cuba right now, and your mainstream media is not talking about it. They're talking about other places. They're not talking about what's happening in Cuba. These people are being slaughtered in Cuba and they don't have guns because as a regular citizen, you cannot have guns in Cuba. So this is why I love the United States. This is why I love Texas. That's why I stay here and I defend this state. This is a Lone Star state. I'm going to stay here to defend it to my very last breath. This is Michael Cargill, and you are listening to Come and Talk It.
Peace. This is Maj Toure. You're listening to Come and Talk It Radio with Michael Cargill.
Whether it's a typical traffic stop or you're just involved in a use of force incident, encounters with law enforcement can be scary and stressful. In the heat of the moment, you may inadvertently say something you don't mean or make an inconsistent statement. These are red flags for officers, and if they think you're lying or your story doesn't add up, they might arrest you and let the criminal justice system decide your fate. Police officers are trained to get information from you without making the interaction seem like a formal interrogation. But remember, from the moment an officer arrives on scene, everything you say and everything you do will be scrutinized in court. The prosecuting attorney will attempt to use anything and everything against you. So what do you say? You say, I invoke my right to remain silent, and then let your attorney interact with law enforcement on your behalf. One important note though, do not throw common sense out the window. For example, if the intruder's hiding somewhere in your house when the police arrive, or if you saw the perpetrator pitch his weapon into your backyard, quickly tell the police and then stop talking. You might ask, what about my rights? What if the police never read me my Miranda rights? Miranda rights is the common name for a collection of rights contained in the Miranda warnings, given to suspects when they're placed under arrest. The warning comes from a 1966 Supreme Court case, Miranda v. Arizona. In that case, the court held that statements from a custodial interrogation would not be admissible unless proper procedural safeguards were in place to protect the defendant's Fifth Amendment rights. We've all seen these warnings on TV and movies. You have the right to remain silent. You have the right to have an attorney. Anything you say can and will be used against you in a court of law, and so on. So do police have to read you your rights? No. It's important to note that officers are not required to read you these rights unless you're in custody and subjected to interrogation. If the police show up to a crime scene and start asking you general questions and you voluntarily tell them everything that happened, those statements can be used against you regardless of the Miranda warnings because you're not in custody. If you're put in handcuffs, but you say something incriminating on your own without being questioned, those statements can and will be used against you because you're not being interrogated. You're just starting to spout off. This is why it's imperative that you know your rights, and you shouldn't rely on the police to read them to you. Affirmatively invoke your rights. Say, I'm invoking my right to remain silent and my right to my attorney. Once you do that, the police legally shouldn't continue questioning you without your attorney present. But remember, there's a second part to this equation. After invoking your rights, you must exercise those rights. That means you have to keep your mouth closed. Protect yourself. Don't let the legal system take advantage of you after an incident. And Law Shield members, if you've been involved in a self-defense incident, remember to call the emergency hotline and speak with your independent program attorney.
Welcome back to Come and Talk It. And now here's Michael Cargill.
All right, so we're back, and Matthew Rivas says, let's talk about how you need an AR-15 with nukes to threaten the government, according to Biden. But the shaman and the dude with a chainmail and a sword in the January 6th riots almost toppled democracy.
Come on, man.
And Anais Hassel, man, that's my old platoon sergeant back when I was in the United States Army. He says, sound off, pass, and review. Man, I remember those days there, Anais, let me tell you. That's right. My feet still hurt. All right, so I want to talk about current events. Let's talk about the Nationals and Padres game that was suspended after a shooting outside Nationals Park. Let's talk about that. So Saturday night's game between the Washington Nationals and San Diego Padres was suspended after multiple gunshots were fired outside Nationals Park in a chaotic scene that ended with fans on the field and in the dugouts. Man, this shooting happened on South Capitol Street near an entrance to the stadium. Police said there were 3 victims, a woman who was found wounded outside the stadium, and 2 others who showed up at a hospital a short time later were taken into custody. Now, according to Ashton Benedict, the D.C. Police Executive Assistant Chief, said police chief believed that the incident was gunfire from at least one car toward another. They recovered one of the vehicles believed involved and are seeking another. One of the people shot was a woman who was attending the game. Now, Benedict said all of the victims' wounds were believed to be non-life-threatening, and police officials initially tweeted that there were 4 people they thought were wounded in the incident, but later updated the number to 3, and police were trying to determine what led to the gunfire, but noted that they believe it was unrelated to the game. Just a simple drive-by shooting. This happened outside the game. Boy, they had people running for their dear life. Do you see the pictures of that, Zach? It was crazy. Man, people were hopping over seats. They were running to the dugout. You know, I bet you they wish they had a gun.
I bet a bunch of people got injured when they're just trying to jump over something.
Oh, yeah, just trying to get from all that stuff?
Exit.
I bet you want to change. I bet you go to your elected officials and, hey, we need to change the laws about professional sporting events. We need to carry a gun.
No, knowing them, they just want to ban guns.
They
in
want to
these
ban.
places.
That's right. Yeah.
That's their solution to everything.
Just ban them all, right?
Ban them.
Ban. Something happened, just ban them.
Mm-hmm.
No. No ban. More guns equals less crime. I'm stuck on that. All right, so I want to go back. I'm going to, make sure we understand this Texas constitutional carry law that's going to go into effect on September the 1st. So, yes. Constitutional carry is going to go into effect on September the 1st. That means that anyone, as long as you can legally possess a firearm, you will be able to carry said firearm as long as you're 21 and up. Got to be 21 and up. At 18, you can have a loaded handgun in your vehicle at 18, but you will not be able to step outside that vehicle, and go about your day until you turn 21 under Texas constitutional carry law on September the 1st. We're calling this bill, this law here, the Firearms Carry Act of 2021. You also cannot be convicted of assault causes bodily injury. Man, I tell you, next week, we're going to have to ask Edwin about that. I want to ask him about assault caused bodily injury. I want to ask him about deadly conduct and terroristic threats, because I wonder why they added that in there, because I thought all of those were felonies. I got to ask Edwin about that. Maybe I'm wrong. I could be. We'll ask him about that next week. Also, disorderly conduct, discharging a firearm. Hey, you know what? You cannot carry under Texas constitutional carry law. Also, if you're convicted of disorderly conduct displaying a firearm, you will not be able to carry a handgun under Texas constitutional carry law. Federal law, when you walk into the gun store and you know how you fill out the 4473, and on that form, they ask you a bunch of different questions. They ask you to put in your first name, your last name, your middle initial, your date of birth, your height, your weight. They ask you all those little questions there, and you fill out that form. Well, guess what? There's some things on there, that says, hey, is this gun that you're buying for you? Make sure it's not a straw purchase. It says also, are you under indictment or, any information in any court for a felony or any other crime for which the judge could imprison you for more than 1 year? If you are, you cannot carry under Texas constitutional carry law. There's a question that says, have you ever been convicted in any court, including a military court, of a felony? If so, you cannot carry a handgun under Texas constitutional carry law. It says, are you a fugitive from justice? That could be something as simple as a ticket, a speeding ticket that you received, and you cross state lines. You are now a fugitive from justice. You cannot carry the Texas constitutional carry law. It says, are you an unlawful user of, addicted to marijuana, any depressant, stimulant, narcotic drug, or any other controlled substance? That's crazy. You cannot carry the Texas constitutional carry law. That means if I have a marijuana use card from another state, then I cannot carry in the Texas constitutional carry law, and I cannot buy a gun from a gun store.
That means if you smoke a joint on occasion, then you can't have a gun.
You can't carry under Texas constitutional carry law. You cannot. They're talking, man. They're talking everything. They're talking everything.
They're talking also
that too. That's crazy.
But yeah, the assault causing bodily injury
Yeah.
in Texas is a Class A misdemeanor.
Oof, man. And have you ever been adjudicated as a mental defective, or have you ever been committed to a mental institution? They lock you up against your will. You cannot carry in the Texas constitutional carry law. Have you ever been discharged from the armed forces under dishonorable conditions? I know a lot of people that have been discharged from the military in dishonorable conditions, and that will bar you from buying a gun ever, and also will keep you from carrying the Texas constitutional carry law. That is very serious, and people don't realize that when you're getting out of the military, they kick you out, and it's a dishonorable conditions that affects your gun rights forever. Are you subject to a court order, including a military protection order issued by a military judge or magistrate, restraining you from harassing, stalking, or threatening your child or an intimate partner or child of such partner? You cannot carry under Texas constitutional carry law. You cannot purchase a firearm. Have you ever been convicted in any court of a misdemeanor crime of domestic violence? Or have you ever been a member of the military and been convicted of a crime that included as an element that the use of force against a person as identified in this instructions that they're listing here. Man, this is crazy. You cannot carry in the Texas constitutional carry law. Have you ever renounced your United States citizenship? If you have, you cannot carry in the Texas constitutional carry law. Are you an alien illegally or unlawfully in the United States? If you are, you cannot carry under Texas constitutional carry law. If you're here legally, then you can. You could be from another country and carry the Texas constitutional carry law. Do you know some states, Zach, that have a constitutional carry law? Half of those states, that the way the law is written, you have to be a resident of the state in order to carry in the Constitution.
Can't just be a visitor.
Not a visitor, yeah. But in Texas, we say, hey, come on to Texas and bring your guns with you. As long as you're here legally, you meet this criteria here, you can carry your handgun come September the 1st without a license.
So you don't have to live here.
You don't have to live here. You can be a visitor. Be here for spring break.
So come on down to Texas.
Come on to Texas. Bring your guns. The Lone Star State.
Or come
Texas is like a whole other country.
It's its own country. You're going to learn today.
We tried to secede a few times anyway.
We tried.
Hasn't been successful.
Not yet. Still working on it from what they tell me.
We have something like it would be the one of the top 20 GDPs in the world. Just Texas.
That's right. Yeah.
If we were to break off, we could be our own country.
It would definitely cripple the United States.
It would cripple. Yeah.
It would. It would definitely cripple the United States. They can't afford to lose Texas.
Mm-hmm.
As goes Texas, we'll go the rest of this country.
Yeah, then presidential election would go Democrat every time.
That's right. Can't lose Texas. They need Texas.
Yeah, don't lose us. Be good to us.
That's right. You better treat
Be
us
good
right.
to us, U.S.
Treat us right. You don't treat us right, we're going to leave. We'll pack our stuff up and go home.
Take our toys and leave.
That's right. All my toys, my big toys and my little toys. You know what I don't like, though? I don't like the fact that they passed a bill that says I can't fire a firearm from a drone. I think that's one of the first anti-gun legislations that came out of this governor and also came out of this legislative body.
Cartels are doing that.
You cannot fire a gun. As of September 1st, you will not be able to fire a firearm from a drone.
You could before?
You could before. Well, technically you couldn't. There are other things in the law that says you really can't, but they made it clear that you cannot do this come September 1st. I don't like that. To me, that's an anti-gun legislation. All right, so I hope we broke all this stuff down to you today. Hope you learned a lot. Definitely, you need to take a class. You need to get some legal plan. You need to get a legal plan if you're going to carry a gun. Talked about that. We talked about the pros and the cons. We're going to talk about more next week. But keep this in mind. It's good to have a license if you're going to carry in other states. It's good to have a license if you're going to be within the school zone. It's good to have a license if you're going to buy a firearm. It's good to have a license if you're 18 and 20. You're in the military. You're the LTC. It's good to have a license if you're a school employee. It's good to have a license if you're on private property. It's good to have a license if you're going to be in a hospital, nursing home, amusement park. Need more notice. It's good to have a license if you forget and you carry in the airport. It's good to have a license if you're stopped by police. And guess what? The number one thing on my list is good to have a license because on September 1st, I'll be able to go into city council meetings and open meetings and carry a gun in the open or concealed in the state of Texas on September 1st. Ladies and gentlemen, as always, more guns equals less crime. You go out there and you buy yourself a gun. You've been listening to Come and Talk It with Michael Cargill.